Oh, hey Bella. Oh, hey friend. No. So off air we were talking about just the process of switching scenes, like poetry scenes. You started off reading poetry in South Africa, I think.
I did.
And then how long were you there for? And then we'll get to how you kind of came to be like in the London, on the London scene.
Cool. So I lived in South Africa for 4 years in total. I did university there, I did a 3-year degree, and then I stayed there for another year to pursue the poetry dream.
Yeah, the poetry dream.
The dream!
What's the scene like over there? What are the nights like? Are slams or?
It's a great question actually. So I can only speak for the Gauteng scene, which encapsulates Joburg and Pretoria. The first night I ever went to was here's an interesting thing about the scene in South Africa.
Yeah.
They call it an open mic, but you still get judged as though it's a slam. So It's called an open mic, but then you're always judged.
That's weird.
So yeah,
man.
so when I came here, that was one of the biggest changes, was that like there's a very distinct open mic and a very distinct slam, whereas over there everything's blended.
Okay.
Yeah. I can only speak for the 2 ones that I attended the most frequently. That's how they were. But so the first one I went to was Spoken Sessions, which was an open mic slam. And I think the first one I went to, I just watched and was like hooked, and I saw these 2 guys in particular, and I was like, these need to be my buddies and they need to show me everything. And luckily they wanted to, mainly because they were hitting on my friend.
It happens.
That's literally what happened though. Yeah, I could ramble for days. You should. You direct this.
Okay. So the sort of the conceit of this conversation is going to be like just kind of being fairly fresh in the London scene, and like I just want to get some of your opinions on the way that it works, like and just the differences of like different scenes and different cities. But specifically, you've been in London since about April, I think. I'm recording this in like October, so. But it's not only that you've come over fairly recently, it's that you've been one of the people who's really thrown themselves in. I've seen you at so many nights and you're doing so much stuff. Like, I would want to know about how you keep kind of like your head straight with all these different nights, all these different like ways to do poetry, because obviously you said that these two nights were like open mics and slams. That's a whole other thing. But how have you found it going from like the South African scene to the way that London is, and the way that London, especially London poetry, is super competitive? There's lots of different nights as well. There's something happening every night of the week. Just tell me some interesting things that you found about it. Also, I know that you work for Apples and Snakes, which is another fascinating thing, being like, the largest UK effectively poetry like kind of production company or industry. So we'll get to Apples and Snakes in a bit. But in terms
You've just
of
given me so many things.
I know. Yeah. So we're gonna chunk them up, do one by one. Just the different types of nights. So like feature nights, open mics. What sort of nights have you been to most regularly in London, and what's interesting about them?
Such good questions. So I've been to open mics. I've been to slams. Feature nights, I guess you just mean sort of the open mics that have got features.
Yeah.
I've been to those ones as well. I enjoy all of them thoroughly. Mainly, I think, because it's just so exciting for me to finally be in a place where there is something happening so regularly, because in Gauteng, it was sort of, there was Word and Sound the first Saturday of every month, and then there was Spoken Sessions this like second Friday of every month, and that was it. So like, I would work like a motherfucker. Ooh, can I swear? I don't know.
Yeah.
I would work like a motherfucker for those 2 slams, but that was it. So I would just work on those 2 poems, or just the one poem that I would do at both, that's all I would do. So I would come out with maybe one good poem, but like that's it, whereas here it's like, I can try out this one here and I can try out that one here, and like this night's more sort of into comedy, so let me try to do a comedy poem here, or like this. So it's really exciting for me to be able to grow in so many different ways here, because there are so many different pockets to try out different things, which I love. Yeah, and I love that it's open mics that you don't get judged at, which is really nice.
I still can't get over the fact that it's a standard that open mics are judged. That really screws with me.
I mean, they're slams, but they call them open mics, which is interesting. Because you do sign up on the night.
I suppose so. I'm gonna have to park that, otherwise I will just talk about it all the time. But so what was the first night you went to when you got to London? What was the start?
What was the first night I went to?
Or the first time you performed?
I think it was Word Up.
Word Up?
I think so.
Nice. Northwest London, up in Harlesden.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually where I met Tyrone, who of course initiated me into the scene, as he does. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the first one I went to. Although I had come up before from Norwich to do Tung Fu open mic thing, but that's not really like an open mic in the same way because they curate it.
True. It's just a very interesting type of open mic. But also, you mentioned that you were in Norwich as well.
Yes.
Obviously, not to be too London-centric about this, you were performing in Norwich. What was the scene like there? I know there's a huge like university literary scene there because they have the Creative Arts University there, but obviously the Standard Uni. What were the nights there like? I know that the kind of East Anglia poetry crew is like, you know, they're very active, but it's tends to be more like page type stuff. Was it like that for you? And what stuff were you performing there? Because I know you were very like performative in the pieces that you had when you initially started in London. So what was it like going to Norwich as well?
I really enjoyed Norwich. I think it's a lovely corner of the world. And,
they'll love you for saying that.
Yeah, no, my sister's like avidly like Norwich. This is the place. I really enjoyed it. I only did like one slam there. I really wanted to go to. They've got a couple of events that happen on various nights, but I managed to miss all of them because of various family things. But yeah, their one of their uni slams was cool. I enjoyed it. It was actually quite performative. It was more performative than I expected. Yeah, but I do agree with you. There's a lot of page poetry. Like we did try to find one night just happening in the town, and it had been like touted on Facebook as being this great open mic night, and then we got there and it was just all these really old people with like just their books, and I was like, this is not for me. This is not where I fit in.
There's a place for it, but it's not me right now.
Yeah, my stuff isn't gonna work here. So yeah, we left.
and straight back. No, it's cool. Right. So and then obviously Norwich for like a quick second, and then like London as well, and like, loads of different types of stuff in London.
Yes.
But how does your work with Apples? Before I get into that, just talk to me about what it is you do for Apples and Snakes, and who Apples and Snakes are for anybody who doesn't already know.
Cool. So Apples and Snakes are the sort of leading organisation in the UK for poetry and education through poetry. They're a really, really cool company, and I'm really, really psyched to be working for them. I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm just their administrative assistant. But basically, they put out an ad looking for volunteers to do some of their archive work. So I came along and did that, and then was really enjoying that because I was getting to see like the greats, like Zena Edwards from like back in the day, like watching her like one-woman shows and stuff and being like, oh, this person's amazing, I hope they got famous, and then meeting her next and being like, she is famous, and that's great.
Also, they're accessible, like, you know, they're about.
Exactly, like I've literally answered the phone to her and she's been like, hi, this is Zena Edwards, and I'm like, oh, hello. Hi, how are you? Yeah, so I did that, and then one day they were like, oh, we actually need an assistant for this, so do you want to go and do that? And I was like, yes, I do.
Nice.
So yeah, so it's not like a full-time thing, it's we'll see what happens with it, but at the moment I'm really enjoying it.
And then does that obviously keep you going to events and keep you like kind of, I imagine to be aware of what's happening in the scene, that's a great job to have, especially
Definitely.
like, you know, having to do, I was going to say catch up drinking, but kind of catch up contextualizing.
Catch up poetry.
Catch up poetry. Like,
it's really good to sort of know, because we have a meeting every Wednesday to just talk about like everything that's coming up and what people are doing and things. At the moment they're having a lot of things happening regionally, so they're not in London and like they're harder to get to and stuff. I want to get to those ones, but at the moment I'm kind of London centric. But it's useful, and like getting to sort of just hear them talk about like who they're watching and who's coming up and like who they're planning on getting on board and that kind of thing. It's useful to know like what they have in their mind as a requirement for people that they're going to be bringing on. So that's nice to have in the back of my mind.
I'm learning all those secret Apples and Snakes, like, you know, tiny bits of awesome information. I've heard that there is genuinely a wall chart with events coming up, and it's like the Apples and Snakes like master, like cheat code kind of.
Oh
like,
no, it's not a cheat code. Shame. No, it's just a whiteboard with like all the events in London, which is really useful.
Pretty cool.
For me especially. Yeah, I've definitely taken a picture of it and been like, aha, I have not been to Frogs and Jays. Let me check that one out.
Shout out Frogs and Jays. It's a quality open mic.
Okay, cool. I'll definitely check it out. Yeah, I've got like a list in my room of like all the open mic nights I need to go to, and there's a lot I need to still go to, but I love that because I can still go to them.
Yeah, I can imagine it being like a super. It's such an interesting perspective to have, to be able to come to, because I've been performing in London for about like four years now, and so like I've seen a lot of changes. But I was when I came in very fresh, I was like very starry eyed and in awe by it.
Where were you coming from?
I was coming from Essex, and so
Okay.
like, you know, I moved to London for university, and it was you know, it was very much about learning the nights that I liked, and the sort of geographically where I was East London and kind of like east and north. So like location was a huge play for me. but finding out about just the way that scenes interacted sort of like across London, like, you know, nights that are in certain places, you learn about communities, you learn about
Yeah, definitely.
the styles that people write in different parts of London. Slang comes into play massively as well.
Very true.
Like, have you seen noticeable differences in poetry that's come from different parts of London? And like, could you pick them out of a hat or whatever, pick them out of a lineup if they were presented to you?
Maybe in like another 6 months I could. Like, I'm sort of starting to pick up on it now. Like, it took me a while actually when I first got here to even like understand some of the like accents around here.
Yeah.
Because like, even though I have like a fairly British accent, like hearing like Cockney and like very London accents and like also like the different blends of accents, like, you know, like British Jamaican and like British like Caribbean, like all the different styles of speaking. It's like, it took me a while to, and like Scottish accents like threw me off. So just I'm still kind of trying to figure out if I can actually understand people, but when we're getting there, so I think I probably would be able to start figuring out which places. But South London is definitely different to North London.
Yeah, I mean, South Londoners and North Londoners would definitely agree with you there.
Yeah, they're definitely different.
No, it's just a fascinating perspective. Apart from that, I would also like to just get your opinions. If you could say a quick word on the way that different events, obviously like, you know, slams versus open mics. Which ones do you enjoy and why? How are they different in the UK versus maybe South Africa? And like, you know, because I saw you at the Genesis Slam a couple of weeks ago as well, and it's super interesting in there. Just talk to me about the way that you've seen slams kind of like, you know, interact differently.
Shout out to Genesis Slam, I really enjoy it. The difference being, so the biggest slam / open mic that I did in South Africa was Word and Sound, and the way that they work is they have it on like a league, so you perform every month consistently for 8 months, and then the points that you get at each month's event add up, and then if you've got the most points, then you go into the festival with 4 other people, and then if you win that, you're then like the queen or king of the mic for the following year.
Okay.
So that was a lot more of like a sort of stamina-based sort of marathon of like open mics and slams.
And for those who don't know, you did actually win that slam, by the way.
I did.
Just so our viewers know. But, okay.
I worked for that. Because every month, and like we had to, that was oh my gosh, this is one thing that I love about London compared to South Africa. So for that slam, they had the sign-up sheet would arrive at 9 a.m, but people were so like adamant to get onto the sheet that we started lining up at 6 a.m, and I had to get there from Pretoria, which was an hour away. And I usually was picking up a bunch of people as well. So I was literally leaving the house at like 4 a.m. on a Saturday to like get people and like drive there and arrive there by like 6:30 to then wait for the list for 3 hours, sign up, and then go get lunch and wait till the show started at 1 p.m. So like, I'm alright with that not being a thing in London. Like, I'm
That
okay.
is some dedication. That is some
so
damn
dedicated.
dedication.
For 8 months.
Wow.
Yeah, but if you got into the top 5 of that month, then you didn't have to do all that because then you were automatically on the list. So that was also another motivation. So there was a lot of incentive, which is one thing that I do think the London slams slightly are lacking. Like, obviously there's the incentive of winning, and like some of these slams do then take you into the Hammer and Tongue, the Royal Albert Hall.
Yeah, and obviously
thing,
lots of opportunities and stuff like that. Yeah.
Which is amazing, but I do think there is room for more of that kind of incentive and more of that sort of like, I'm quite competitive and I quite like the like sort of jostling and like, yeah, but I did that. Yeah, but you didn't. Like, you know, like I quite enjoy that.
Friendly competition.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I think poetry is just such a community of family that like competition's always in like a very kind way, which I appreciate. So it's my favorite kind of competition.
Well, that's comprehensive, and I'm still baffled at the sheer amount of dedication. Driving for an hour to pick up mates to sign up. At 9 a.m. There are times when I've had to get to an event and I've just been a little bit late and it's really bad. I feel really sloppy now. I feel quite ashamed. No, I think London, the London slam scene specifically, definitely has things that they can improve on. The league system sounds really interesting. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, I do love that part. Yeah.
And I mean, I'm just fascinated to see where you go with poetry in the UK, and obviously congrats on all the Apples and Snakes stuff. Apples and Snakes is an incredible organisation, and I hope you continue to help them to do well. I think that's roughly all the time that we have. Okay. But thank you for this wonderful chat, Bella Cox.
Thank you.
Give me a hug.
Hugs.
I'd love.
I'd love.